never thought a glass of wine could change everything. But that night, as I reached across the table and said, "I've been researching snorkeling spots for the cruise next month," Gran came and looks unreal. My sister froze, then smirked. "Wait, you thought you were going on the cruise?" She wasn't joking. She tilted her head and added, "Oh, Charlotte, that's adorable." I looked around the table waiting for anyone, to say she was just being dramatic. But then my dad chuckled and said, "We figured you'd be more comfortable staying home. Someone needs to keep an eye on the house anyway." And just like that, everyone laughed. Except me. I sat there holding the wine I'd bought with the last of my grocery budget, thinking about the 3 weeks I spent planning every detail of their family celebration cruise. I work as a marketing manager for a travel agency. I use my employee perks to get them upgrades, private excursions, and luxury dining, things they never would have paid for on their own. Not once did anyone mention I wasn't invited. Not until the pot roast was on the table and the betrayal was already seasoned and served. I smiled, because that's what I do. But inside, something broke, clean and quiet. My name is Charlotte Evans. I'm 29 years old. And until that night, I thought I was part of the Evans family. Turns out, I was just the help. The planner. The one they could count on to stay behind. This is the story of how I went from invisible daughter to the storm they never saw coming. Have you ever been the one holding everything together until you finally let go? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story too. I've always been the one who kept things running behind the scenes. You know the type, the sister who remembers birthdays no one else does, who knows how Uncle Jim takes his coffee, who shows up early, stays late, and never asks for anything in return. That's been me since I was old enough to be told to set the table, sweetie. While Emma, my older sister, was crashing her third car or finding herself through a new yoga retreat funded by my dad, I was the one scrubbing dishes at the diner down the street to cover my textbooks. Zach, our youngest, didn't even have to ask. Dad offered him a job at the company the day after high school. No resume, no interview, no accountability. But me? I graduated with honors, earned a degree in marketing, got a full-time job 2 weeks after walking the stage. And they barely noticed. I remember my mom texting me that night. "Congrats, hon. Sorry we couldn't make it. Your sister's back was acting up." She was at a spa in Vail that weekend. At first, I told myself they just assumed I had it together, that they didn't worry about me because I didn't give them a reason to. But over time, it started to feel less like confidence in me, and more like convenience. They knew I wouldn't ask, so they didn't offer. When Zach's truck broke down last fall, Dad had it towed and fixed within 48 hours. When mine died in the middle of a snowstorm, I Ubered to work for 3 weeks straight while eating ramen every night just to afford the repairs. Nobody asked why I was limping in with frozen toes. Nobody noticed. Still, I kept showing up. I showed up for Thanksgiving, bringing the entire dessert spread because Mom's oven's been temperamental. I showed up for Dad's retirement party, helped plan it, printed the custom menu, even designed the slideshow no one thanked me for. It's funny, isn't it? The more you give in a family like mine, the more invisible you become. I once joked to a friend that I was like an unpaid intern in my own family. They laughed. I didn't. When Dad announced the cruise to celebrate their 35th wedding anniversary, I genuinely smiled. I thought, maybe, just maybe this time would be different. He stood in the backyard that sunny Sunday afternoon, proudly holding up a brochure and saying, 7 nights in the Caribbean. My treat. Emma squealed. Zach grinned. Mom looked smug, like she'd been waiting for this spotlight. I raised my hand like an idiot and said, "I can help with bookings if you'd like. I can get perks through my job." Dad clapped me on the shoulder. "That's my organized girl." I caught Zach glance at me almost like he wanted to say something, but he just looked away. Organized girl. Not join us. Not pack your bags. Just helpful. Background. But I didn't notice that detail right away. I threw myself into the planning spreadsheets, excursion research, coordinating dinner time so Emma's allergies were considered. I even arranged a surprise wine tasting for them in Cozumel. I kept telling myself, if I do this well, if I make it perfect, maybe they'll finally see me. Isn't that sad? That after 29 years of being the one they could rely on, I still thought I had to earn their inclusion. Then came that dinner. That night where everything shifted. When Emma laughed and said I wasn't going, When Dad said I'd be doing them a favor by staying behind. When they all laughed like it was the most natural thing in the world. I sat there thinking, of every email I had sent to coordinate this trip, of every late night I spent fixing details, of how I moved meetings around just so I could help them. And they didn't even flinch. They had all decided I wasn't coming, but they also didn't have the decency to tell me. Because telling me would mean acknowledging I might have feelings about it. And in my family, feelings are inconvenient, especially mine. So I smiled. I swallowed the wine. I helped clear the plates. And I drove home that night in total silence. But that silence wasn't empty. It was preparing something. For the first time in my life. I wasn't going to be the responsible one. I wasn't going to fix anything. I was going to let them fall apart. And I was going to do it, gracefully. I called in sick the next morning. It was the first sick day I'd taken in over 3 years. I stared at the ceiling long after sunrise, my eyes gritty from crying and my head pulsing from a sleep that never came. The apartment felt quiet in a way that didn't comfort me, a kind of silence that echoed back every memory I didn't want to relive. My phone buzzed once. A text from my mom. "Thanks for your help with dinner last night. Dad really enjoyed the wine." That was it. No mention of what had happened. No apology. No confusion. Not even an acknowledgement. Just business as usual. I didn't reply. I didn't even open the message fully. I stared at it, then flipped my phone face down on the nightstand like it had insulted me. After a long shower and 2 Advils, I found myself in the kitchen making coffee I couldn't taste. My laptop sat where I'd left it, still open from pulling up their final itinerary. The cruise. The cabin layout. The flights. The excursions. The dinner reservations. All of it was still there. All of it, under my name. Because of course it was. Every reservation had been booked using my work account. My employee login. My personal email. All tied together by the system perks that only I could access and only I could change. I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking next to the words, "Confirmed status." The balance hadn't been paid in full yet. The remaining total, almost $6,000, was scheduled to auto-charge my dad's card in 16 days. The system allowed for last-minute changes, modifications, substitutions, cancellations. And suddenly, like fog clearing off a windshield, I could see every step. Not out of revenge. Not even out of rage. This was clarity. I opened a new folder on my desktop and labeled it, Family Cruise. After 7 years in this job, I knew the system better than most IT reps. I'd helped untangle worse booking messes for high-end clients. My fingers shook slightly. Not from fear. From resolve. I wasn't going to delete anything. That would trigger alerts, refunds, customer service callbacks. I wasn't stupid. I worked here long enough to know better. But modifying? That was quieter. Switching dates. Altering names. Changing the primary traveler. Those kinds of changes wouldn't flag until the day of travel. And by then, well, they'd already be packed and at the airport. I clicked into the cabin section first and changed the primary guest on each room from my dad's name to a placeholder alias. I removed all guests and left the fields blank for now, just a little housekeeping, easily reversible, or not. I rerouted all confirmation emails to a separate inbox I created that morning. Just in case someone got curious. I paused for a moment, hands hovering over the keyboard. Was I really doing this? I thought back to the way Emma smirked when she told me I wasn't going. To the way Dad casually assigned me house-sitting duties like I was the family dog. To the way Mom looked down at her plate and didn't say a word. Yes, I was doing this. Because this wasn't just about a cruise. It was about 29 years of being invisible. Of being useful but never valued. Of being expected to give, then blamed for needing anything in return. It was about every birthday I spent alone while they forgot or got busy. Every holiday where I brought gifts and left empty-handed. Every conversation where my feelings were dismissed as too sensitive. I wasn't going to explain myself anymore. I wasn't going to justify why this hurt. I'd done that too many times before, and every time, I was met with sighs and eye rolls and that awful phrase, "You're making it about you again." No. This time it was about me. I booked a cabin in Telluride, a remote Airbnb tucked into the pines, no Wi-Fi, no neighbors, no guilt. I used PTO I'd been saving for a promotion I never got. I scheduled 2 weeks off to disconnect and recharge. I didn't leave a note. I didn't post a story. I just disappeared. Let them wonder. Let them call. Let them scramble at the airport when nothing worked. Let them feel for once what it was like to be excluded. The morning they were supposed to leave, I made pancakes. Blueberry, my favorite. Outside the windows of the cabin, pine trees swayed in the breeze and a light dusting of snow clung to the roof. The silence was thick, peaceful, the kind that comes not from escape, but from choosing to be unreachable. I poured coffee into the same mug I'd used every morning since arriving in Telluride and checked my phone for the first time that day. 1 bar of signal, just enough. 9:11 a.m. They'd be arriving at the airport around now. I opened the group family chat. Nothing yet. Closed it. Set the phone face down. Took another bite of pancake. I wanted the moment to breathe, to let it exist before the storm rolled in. At 9:47 a.m., my phone lit up like Christmas. Dad, Charlotte. There's a problem with the reservations. Carnival doesn't have us on the manifest for today. Emma, why is the system saying we're leaving tomorrow? Zach, check the confirmation email. Mine says November 18th, not today's date. Mom, sweetheart, did something get changed in the booking? We're all at the gate and they can't find us. I watched the messages pile up. Saw the shift in tone from confused to panicked. And I felt calm. Not vengeful. Not gleeful. Just still. I had lived my entire life on the emotional roller coaster they built, lurching from approval to guilt, from hope to dismissal. And for once I was standing on solid ground, watching them flail. Emma, they're saying we have no flight. What the hell is going on? Zach, wasn't everything under Charlotte's account? Dad, Charlotte, pick up your phone. I didn't. Instead, I rinsed my plate and stepped outside with my coffee, the mountain air biting at my cheeks. The sky stretched open, endless and blue. It felt almost unreal, this calm. While somewhere in a chaotic terminal, voices were rising, tempers flaring. I wasn't there. I didn't have to be. I breathed in deep pine snow firewood. No guilt. When I came back inside, my phone had 8 missed calls. I played the voicemail from Dad. Charlotte, we're standing at the gate. They're saying our cruise isn't confirmed and the credit card didn't go through. What the hell did you do? What I did, Dad, was stop saving you. By 11 a.m., the panic had mutated into something more personal. The texts became emotional shrapnel. Emma, did you do this on purpose? Are you seriously that petty? Zach, if this was a mistake, just say so. We can fix it. Mom, sweetheart, please call me. If something's wrong, we can talk. It had been nearly an hour since the first texts. I imagined Emma pacing, drink in hand. She always drank when control slipped through her fingers. Emma, you better believe the whole family's gonna hear about this. You've finally proven you're unstable. Unstable. That word hit me harder than I expected. It was the same one they'd whispered when I said I felt overlooked. When I cried alone in my apartment after being excluded again and again. Not hurt. Not disappointed. Unstable. Because God forbid I have feelings about being left behind. At 12:32 p.m., I got a message from Zach, the only one that didn't sting. I'm not saying I get it, but I think I'm starting to. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat by the fire with a blanket and a book I hadn't had time to read in years. The world spun without me, and I let it. I imagined them at the gate, arguing with agents, rechecking confirmation numbers, realizing the email thread led nowhere, realizing that for once, I had the power, and they didn't. 3:16 p.m. Mom called again. I let it go to voicemail. At 4:02 p.m., Emma sent a voice note that started calm and ended in slurred shouting. She'd clearly been drinking. You always play the victim. You always make it about you. Well, congratulations. Charlotte, you ruined everything. Dad is furious. Mom's in tears. And I hope you're happy wherever the hell you are. I was. Not happy in a dancing, celebrating kind of way. But in the quiet, steady kind, the kind where you know you've finally stepped outside the cycle. The kind where the silence doesn't hurt anymore. That night, I opened a bottle of wine, the good one I'd been saving, and toasted to the version of me that finally stopped begging for a seat at the table. I didn't need to sit there anymore. I pulled into the driveway at exactly noon. 1 week had passed since the dinner that changed everything, and 3 days since they returned from their non-cruise. Dad's truck. Mom's sedan. Emma's flashy convertible with a fresh dent in the bumper. They were all here, waiting. I didn't bring anything, no wine, no dessert, no peace offering. Just my keys and a letter I never intended to read out loud. I knocked instead of using my key. A small decision, but a deliberate one. Mom opened the door. Her face softened with something between relief and nervousness. Charlotte. Thank God. Come in. Everyone's in the living room. I didn't say hi. Didn't hug. Just stepped inside and took a breath. The air smelled like cinnamon and tension. Dad sat in his usual recliner, arms crossed, face unreadable. Emma perched on the edge of the couch like she was ready to pounce. Zach gave me a small nod from the corner armchair. I returned it. Sit down, Charlotte, Dad said. I stayed standing. I'll stand, thanks. He exhaled hard through his nose. Suit yourself. Do you have anything to say for yourself? I raised an eyebrow. You mean? Aside from how I planned a full vacation I was never invited to? Or how you used me to book it and then told me I wasn't real family over a pot roast? Emma rolled her eyes. Oh my God. Are we really doing this again? Yes, I said. We are. Because for once, I'm not sweeping it under the rug. Mom stepped in, voice shaky. Sweetheart, we didn't mean to hurt you. It was just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I laughed short, bitter. You laughed in my face. Told me to stay behind and watch the house. And now you want to act like it was a scheduling issue. Dad spoke next. What you did cost us thousands. Flights, hotels, missed work. That was deliberate sabotage, Charlotte. You're right. I said calmly. It was deliberate. Just like excluding me was deliberate. You didn't forget me, Dad. You made a decision. You all did. You just didn't think I'd do the same. You went too far. Emma snapped. Jesus, if you had a problem, you could have just said something. I've said everything, Emma. I snapped back. For years. And every time I did, you made me feel crazy. Overly sensitive. Dramatic. Mom looked away. Zach shifted in his seat. Only Dad held my gaze. You've always been dramatic, he said coldly. You just didn't like the truth. Then here's another one, I said, stepping closer. When's my birthday? He blinked. What? My birthday. Say it. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Exactly, I said. Now ask me when Emma's is. Or Zach's. Or your golf schedule. I bet you can recite all of that without blinking. Silence. I turned to Mom. What was my GPA when I graduated? She blinked. 3.6. 3.98. Summa cum laude. You didn't come because Emma had a nail appointment she couldn't reschedule. Emma scoffed. That's not what happened. It's exactly what happened, I said. And you know what? I've spent my whole life pretending it didn't matter. Telling myself that if I just worked harder, showed up more, stayed quiet longer, you'd eventually see me. Choose me. Invite me. I looked around the room. But you never did. And I finally stopped waiting. Zach spoke softly. She's right. All heads turned. I didn't see it before. But she's not wrong. We've treated her like a backup plan. Not a sister. Emma stood up, furious. You're taking her side now? I'm not taking sides, he said. I'm acknowledging facts. Dad stood. Enough. This isn't a courtroom. Charlotte, you can either apologize or... I cut him off. Or what? I don't get invited to the next thing I was never part of anyway. Silence again. I'm not here for an apology, I said. I know better. I'm here to say this once and only once. I looked them each in the eye. I'm done being your help. Your afterthought. Your insurance policy. I won't fight for a seat at a table I was never meant to be at. And if that makes me selfish or cold or unstable, so be it. But at least I'm finally being honest. I turned to leave. Charlotte, Mom said, voice trembling. Please don't walk out like this. I'm not walking out, I said. I'm walking away. The door clicked shut behind me. I didn't slam it. Didn't storm off. Just closed it gently. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was exhausted. And for the first time, that exhaustion didn't feel like defeat, it felt like freedom. As I got into my car, I noticed our neighbor, Mrs. Haynes, standing on her porch watering her petunias. She looked right at me like she'd heard every word through the thin summer air. She gave a small nod. I gave a smaller one back. I drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. That week, the silence from my family was deafening. No texts, no calls, not even from Zach. But I didn't fill the space this time. I didn't reach out first. I sat in it, let it echo. Instead, I focused on work and myself. I started running again in the mornings, booked a massage, bought real groceries for the first time in months. Little things. But they made me feel alive again, like a person, not just a role. On Thursday, I got a text from Zach. Want to grab coffee? Just us. I stared at the screen for a long minute, then replied. Sure. Saturday morning. That place on 12th. We met at 9 a.m. sharp. He was already there when I arrived, 2 coffees in hand. He handed me one. Oat milk. Just the way I liked it. I didn't know whether to be touched or suspicious. I'm not here to fix anything, he said before I could speak. I just want to talk. I sat down. Okay. He looked tired. Not in the physical sense, but like something heavy had finally settled on him. I replayed that night a dozen times, he said. And I keep asking myself, how I didn't see it sooner. You did, I said softly. You just didn't want to. He nodded. Probably true. There was a pause. The kind that used to be awkward but now felt honest. I'm sorry, he said. For my part in all of it. For every time I stayed quiet while they pushed you aside. For pretending it was normal. My eyes stung unexpectedly. I blinked them dry. Thank you, I said. We talked for almost 2 hours. About Dad. About Emma. About Mom, who, according to Zach, had barely left her bedroom since the confrontation. She's thinking, he said. Which for her is kind of a big deal. I half smiled. That might be the nicest way anyone's ever said my mother's spiraling. She's trying, he said. She doesn't know how to say it. But I think she regrets a lot more than she'll ever admit out loud. I nodded. I know the feeling. Before we parted, he hugged me. Not one of those half-hearted family side hugs. A real one. Don't give up on all of us just yet, okay? I didn't make promises. But I didn't pull away either. That evening, I got a message from Mom. I made lemon bars today. Thought of you. It wasn't an apology. But it wasn't nothing. I responded. Thanks. Short. Civil. Measured. No emoji. The following weekend, a letter came in the mail handwritten from Aunt Diane in Oregon. She'd heard about what happened through the grapevine. Said she was proud of me. Said it reminded her of when she cut ties with Grandpa back in the 80s and how everyone called her the ungrateful one just for setting boundaries. I see you, Charlotte, she wrote. And you're not alone. That letter, more than anything, cracked something open in me. Maybe it was the fact that someone outside the immediate chaos had validated it. Maybe it was because it came without strings. But it made me realize. This wasn't just a rupture. It was a reset. I wasn't interested in punishing my family anymore. I was interested in protecting myself. That shift changed everything. I started journaling again. Started therapy, even if it meant sacrificing part of my monthly budget. I stopped attending every single family event, out of obligation. And when Mom invited me to dinner 3 weeks later, just her, just me, I agreed. Cautiously, but willingly. She made my favorite, lemon herb chicken and roasted carrots. She set the table for 2. And for the first time in years, she asked questions about me, not just work. Or do you have a boyfriend yet, but real questions. What made me feel fulfilled. What I wanted to do next. What I needed from her. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just listened. And it wasn't perfect. But it was real. That night, as I left her house, she walked me to the door like she used to when I was a teenager sneaking out to study at the library. Charlotte, she said quietly. I'm sorry. For more than I know how to say. But I'm trying. I believed her. Not because she said the right thing. But because, for once, she didn't try to defend the wrong ones. 6 months after the cruise that never was, I stood in my own kitchen plating lemon bars I'd made from scratch. Not for them. For me. I'd moved to a new apartment on the other side of Denver, nothing fancy, but the sunlight hit the windows just right in the mornings. The kind of place that didn't feel like a storage unit for someone else's expectations. My walls were bare at first. But slowly I began to fill them with things that mattered. Photos of hikes I'd taken alone. A framed print that read, "You are not too much." A cork board where I pinned every small win, booked a new client, finished a tough therapy session. Said no without apologizing. I no longer showed up for every family gathering. And when I did, it was on my own terms. Emma and I hadn't spoken since the confrontation. She had sent one passive-aggressive email in January, accusing me of turning everyone against her and making a scene to feel superior. I didn't respond. Sometimes silence is the clearest boundary. Zach and I had coffee twice a month now. Nothing dramatic. Just steady. We talked about books, work, and occasionally our childhood, though always in careful steps, like walking across a frozen pond we weren't sure could hold us yet. Mom had started calling once a week. At first it was awkward. But then slowly, the calls became less about checking in and more about connecting. She never pushed. Never demanded I come back into the fold. She simply stayed consistent. And that was new. The biggest surprise came in early April when Dad showed up outside my building with a screwdriver set and a box labeled "Wall Shelves, Assembly Required." I opened the door stunned. "Figured you might need help putting these up," he said. Then after a pause, "I know I haven't done much that deserved your trust, but I'm willing to earn it if you let me." I didn't cry, but I didn't slam the door either. He spent 3 hours putting up crooked shelves, cursing under his breath and pretending he wasn't watching me for cues on whether to speak. Before he left, he handed me a folded envelope. Inside was a photo of me, age 12, holding a third-place science fair ribbon. The back read, "I was always proud." I just didn't say it. It wasn't everything, but it was something. And sometimes something is the start. I didn't rebuild my family overnight. I didn't even want to. What I rebuilt was myself. I stopped trying to prove I was worth loving. Stopped auditioning for a role they'd never write me into. I started my own small travel consulting business, using the connections I once used for them, now for me. Booked my first corporate retreat in Mexico. Didn't ask for anyone's opinion. Didn't share it in the group chat. Just lived it. One quiet Thursday morning, as I was sipping coffee and reviewing contracts, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, a calm voice said, "Hi, is this Charlotte Evans? We got your name from a client. She said you helped her plan a retreat that went better than anything her company had ever done." I smiled. "Yes, that's me." In the background, sun spilled over my kitchen table, and for once there was no tension in my chest, no noise in my head. Just space, and air, and a future I wasn't afraid of anymore. I didn't get revenge. I got freedom, not by making them pay, but by finally refusing to. If you've ever been the one who held the family together, if you've ever been praised for your strength just so no one had to care about your pain, if you've ever been left out, overlooked, or treated like the help instead of the heart, I hope this story reminds you of one thing. You don't need their invitation to belong somewhere. You can build your own table, and it can be beautiful. Have you ever had to take a stand against the people who were supposed to love you? What did it cost you and what did you gain? Tell me in the comments. I'm listening. And if this story spoke to something inside you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You're not alone. Not anymore.